Hello and welcome to Week 7 of the OPL, of course, brought to you by Hungry Jacks. My name is Jake Spawn-Tiberi. Joining me is Bryce, Jim Paul, and Brycey.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
How's your week been?
You know, it's been pretty good. I played some League of Legends. I haven't slept in a nook. So it's been overall pretty solid week.
So far, for me, also, no nook sleeping.
Yeah.
So, positives all round. Heard that you've had a little bit of an int, though.
Yeah,
How's
I did.
solo queue going?
I have to apologize. You know, who's on my team? Fire. He's playing today. I had a bit of a roughie in game. You know, blind pick Bard support. I'm not quite what I used to be. And I did have a bit of a roughie. So that's all I really need to say. I did win the game, though. So stuck with it. No FFing. Won the game.
It's good. Never give up. Never give in. Be like Big Dos. Big Swips. Dos. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Let's throw it over to the couch with two other people that I hope know a little bit more of what they're talking about. It's going to be Nick and Dave. Nick, on a scale of 1 to 10, how proud of me were you after that intro?
Look, there's not a number low enough, but I am very proud of the guest that we have on the couch with me today. I've got Dave Harmon.
Yeah, Dan Harmon makes a lot more money than me.
I was about to say, it's very confusing having Dave and Dan so close to each other in the name scale.
Absolutely.
Do you get that a lot?
Well, especially because he started doing D&D stuff as well, which is
course.
what I do.
Yeah.
And so we get some very upset people sometimes listening to the podcast.
Expecting to hear...
Yeah, the dulcet tones of the community's showrunner.
Yeah, and instead they get the dulcet tones of
me.
Someone, just a member of the
sorry.
community. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dave Harmon. I sleep in a normal grown-up bed.
Not a nook?
Not a nook.
Fancy boy over here. I'm very excited to have Dave here over the course of the whole evening. You do the D&T podcast with Hingers.
Yes.
So the community are, of course,
that is my tangential link to this. I mean, I play League. Don't get me wrong.
Please.
Very badly.
Someone in this segment needs to be a professional.
And I play League with Hingers, but also when we're not doing that, we play Dungeons and Dragons together on a podcast called Dragon Friends, which we've been doing for a few years now. And Hing is a monster.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what I hear. I hear he's actually quite bad, but he's a monster human being.
I mean a monster morally.
Yeah, right.
He's good at it.
Yeah, League of Legends very bad. But I ask everybody here, what do you think of my trophy?
Well, it's nice. Did you make it yourself?
No, I bought it.
You bought it?
Yep.
Alibaba?
Yeah.
Minimum order 1,000 pieces?
When you flick it like that, sometimes you think it could have just come from China. But we're going to be here over the course of the whole evening. We're also going to be giving away a lot of stuff. We got skins, we got some posters, but we're also going to be giving away 2 tickets to the Melbourne Esports Open to watch the OPL Grand Final. Woo, the boys from Melbourne, to be watching the OPL Grand Final in September. All you need to do, we figured since you are the D&D man, you're a DM, we wanted the audience to give the best League of Legends story they can tell in 30 words or less.
And that's because the stories are like front and center this week because of the big universe updates. The Rise video.
Exactly.
The Runeterra map.
Exactly. We'll be going into a bit of that over the course of the evening. So your best League story in 30 seconds or less, use the hashtag IMOPL.
30 seconds or 30 words?
30 words, sorry. I mean, I guess it's a second a word if I read it out. So
you want to record a voice memo on your phone and just send it in. And if you can say it in 30 seconds, we don't care how many words it is.
I'll take that as well. And just make sure it's about League lore, it's about League characters, about League towns, trees, the animals in the ground. It's not like, oh, one day I got a pentakill and that was great, full stop, because that one's not going to win. But you can win 2 tickets to Melbourne. It's going to be very exciting. And you're going to judge them because you have a very harsh storytelling critique.
Well, yeah, that's what I do. So stay off my turf. The story should be good, but they can't be too good.
Oh, God.
That would make me upset.
What does too good mean?
Oh, if it's real world building, if I feel something, because I haven't felt something for years, I'm going to be very upset.
All right, well, there you go.
I want you to picture here, and not there.
It needs to be 30 words or less, 30 seconds or less, and Dave can't feel anything.
Yes.
Guys, have you felt anything in a while?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, that's a bit loaded. I feel like as we're progressing through the split, the questions are becoming more and more loaded between the couch and the desk segments.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to push on from that one, actually. It's week 7, and the standings look something like this. As we bring it up on your screen, it's going to be Direwolves on top of the ladder. They're 6-0, undefeated. Of course, they're going to go up against 3rd place Mammoth. Chiefs, Order, and Avant are the other teams within that top 5. Legacy, Tectonic, Bombers right now, Bryce, would be missing playoffs if the league changed today. And Legacy is one of those teams is not like the others.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like last split, Bombers and Tectonic, they were down the bottom half of the ladder there. Tectonic, knocking out, Legacy knocking out your boys last split in order.
Okay.
Made it all the way to third, so this is definitely not where we see them. They've been like trying to get back up there, but I feel like the runs definitely need to start.
Yeah, well, they could start today as we get into the games. The first game of the day is going to be Direwolves taking on Mammoth before Legacy will try and maintain their undefeated run against Order. They are currently 2-0. Bombers versus Tectonic tomorrow at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time before Chiefs versus Avant Gaming in our Saturday night slot.
And I feel like these games are actually pretty interesting. Coming into it, you're like, yes, Direwolves are undefeated, but they showed some cracks last week against Bombers, and Mammoth looked pretty good. Turnaround after game number 1, and then Order versus Legacy. Like, things could just go anywhere.
Yeah, it certainly could. So let's just dive first into the game number 1. It is going to be the LG Direwolves taking on Kappa Mammoth. Of course, those are the two sponsors of the organisation. Want to talk about the headline, however, up in the top lane. It is going to be Chippies versus BioPanther.
Yes.
The grudge match, if you will, Bryce. And I think that both of these guys will have something big to prove for their org.
100%, absolutely, they have something to prove here. Of course, Chippies...
I'll allow the 100% in this context.
At the start of the split, was replaced by the OCS player in BioPanther, who has honestly looked good coming into it. It's going to be pretty interesting. We talk about players like Sybil struggling against his old team. This is the last week of cross-group play, and Direwolves and Mammoths are in opposite groups, so this is the first time we've seen them face off. So BioPanther with a fresh new haircut right now, feeling pretty good, and Chippies is going to want to take it to him.
We'll see whether he is able to. We'll go through the lineup, starting on the blue side. It is going to be the LG Direwolves, still undefeated. BioPanther is their top laner. Shernfire is their superstar jungler. Triple just might be the best player in the league right now. King and Cupcake are their bottom lane. And Coach Curtis Sharp is going to be pacing back and forward behind them. And I want to kick it off with last week's performance, because we have a lot of praise for this lineup. However, dropping a game versus the Bombers in very uncharacteristic fashion, I would argue nearly should have lost the series overall, Bryce. Not the Direwolves we are used to seeing.
Yeah, they just didn't look like the Direwolves. Order, you know, I feel like I call them a mallet. Like, they can fall behind in the mid game, and then they just keep throwing the gauntlet, and like it can end disastrous for them. They sometimes go too aggressive. Chiefs, another top team, they're super hyper aggressive. Swiper falls a little bit behind the side lane, and they force and they get panicked. And Direwolves was the team that I was always like, no. They play it cool, they play it calm, and they can take these long scaling games, but that is just exactly not what we saw for them last week versus Bombers. And you saw sitting at the bottom of the ladder, that is not the team you expect to be taking games off the Direwolves.
It certainly isn't. However, let's go through their opponent's lineup for today. It's going to be Mammoth, Chippies in the top lane. Juves, their 6'5" jungler, who also did a really cool campaign for Headspace this week. Remind, of course, in the mid lane. Mash and Kuden are their bottom lane, and Vicarious is their coach. And I want to kick it off with Mike. Kuden walked up to me after the game last week and said, does that put me in the lead contention for support for Victoria in Origin? Is he the best support from the south of Australia? And I would honestly say, yes.
Because who else is there? Of course, Jake was the Victorian support last split. Are there any other?
No, that's
any others in the OPL? We have Trans, he's new, obviously import.
I'll take him.
Yeah, so maybe he is. His Pike has looked incredibly good. He's one of those players that when a new champ comes out, I always see him spamming it in solo queue, and he's absolutely had the best performances on that game. And then I feel like over the course of the split has just looked better and better with Mash in the bottom lane.
Certainly has, and of course, in the bottom lane, Mash has started to improve at the same time. Someone that we said, you know, maybe looking a little bit more uncomfortable on the majors, went back to some traditional marksman, had some good results.
And that is kind of what you expect, right? Like, 80 carries are just more comfortable on that stuff. And I feel like for Mammoth overall, this matchup is hard for me to call going into it. Because I haven't decided, honestly, if volatility is good going into Direwolves. Because obviously I put Direwolves as the favorite, right? I'm like, yes, they should come in today. They should be victorious if everything goes to plan. But Mammoth aren't the sort of team that, like Bombers did last week, can play controlled and take it late against the Direwolves, which is where we saw success. But then on the flip side, you're like, they can just cause a ruckus in the early game. So I haven't really decided like which side of the coin I land on. And it should be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly should be. However, as I said earlier, during the week, Juves did take part of Headbase's head coach campaign. And to hear a little bit more about that, we're going to throw it over to Nick.
That's right. I've got Juves here on my lap, and
You
his
have
brand new
Juves
poster.
on your lap.
I do. Would you like to have Juves on your lap?
Look, yeah,
This is
sure.
his brand new poster for the Headspace campaign. It's really quite wonderful that they've taken a bunch of sports stars from across Australia, and I've got a focus on men and young men's health and mental health. Juves here with his quote, "Getting outside and kicking a ball takes my mind off things. It makes me happy." he has been such a great ambassador for Headspace, such a great ambassador for League of Legends, and it's very exciting that League and Headspace have managed to come together over this for something that Juves actually really cares about. And also, I will say, a much better picture of him than he and I did of Gragas last week. Did you see last week's broadcast where we painted a beautiful picture?
I did not see that particular moment, no.
Okay, well,
Did I miss something? You're going to show it to me?
Look, I will find it by the time we come back to the next segment, because it's somewhere in the building. I assume they've hidden it because it was too distracting and too good.
Well, I will give you a hot take reaction to that. But yeah, you can win this.
You can, yeah, we'll be giving some of those away, and we'll get the boys here to sign it as well. But it's a very good cause, and Juves, is a very good boy.
Certainly is fantastic cause from Headspace. However, let's push forward. Who do you think is going to take this one? You already mentioned that, this seems to be back and forth. Do you think if a team is going to beat Direwolves, it would be Mammoth?
Yes, and I feel like Direwolves last week's, they did show cracks. Obviously, we talked about what actually happened, but Mammoth, I feel like if there's a game that Direwolves are going to drop, it will be today. Chippy's going up against his old lineup. Like, if he just has a super good day, he comes in and is popping off against Biopanther, gets in his head. Chippy's is a player that has just carried game after game in the OPL traditionally, so I can see it happening. I think it'd be pretty rough for them to do it, and it is like a big punch up the ladder, but it can be done.
Yeah, it certainly can be, of course. Bryce going to be tipping Mammoth, it sounds like. You can have your say as well. obltips.com.au. Of course, brought to you by Hungry Jacks. Register for each week's tipping. You can get XP boost and RP giveaways. And the tip there, Bryce, is you have to register each week.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not doing it anymore. Because we mucked it up. We missed weeks.
Yes, you did, and now I have.
No, you did as well.
Yes.
Did you tip today?
No, I forgot.
See, we missed weeks.
Half an hour before every show, I'm walking downstairs like, okay, I need to do my tips. And then I just didn't do it. It's your fault. You're rubbing off on me.
I don't know what to say to that. I think that sounds like deflection. However, we are into Champions Select. Game number 1 between the Direwolves and Mammoth. It's going to be Camille Swain banned away, as well as Aatrox taken off the board by Mammoth. Waiting for the next ban. It's going to be Kindred, champion that Shern played in all 3 games last week.
Yes, he did. And his early games were very good, had some very nice pathing, but I feel like got picked off probably one too many times in multiple games there. Bit of housekeeping. We do have to note that we're now on patch 8.14. There was an extra week of 13 because of delays over in North America, but now patches come through, so funneling nerfs. You don't get as much gold if you're if you've accrued the highest gold on the map, things like that from lane minions. And TP nerfs across the board, but not a lot of else has changed, and that's a Pyke.
It is Pyke. Rakan as well as Morgana banned away. Pyke is going to be first picked, hopefully for Cupcake, because I've seen him running around in too many solo lanes and he sucks there. Juves going back towards Gragas, champion that he is very familiar with after last week's OPL, and potentially going to be a Braum lock-in as well.
Yeah, and it's much like Shernfire last week on the Kindred. Juves had a similar sort of trajectory. Like, game number 1 was super rough, was whiffing ultis here and there. Party Cask was the word of the cast overall, but then game number 2, game number 3 absolutely turned it around. And as you said, he's played a whole lot of Gragas over his career, so going back to comfort.
We'll see now what the Direwolves want to construct. That is a very good two-way comp coming out of the Mammoth lineup. That can go forwards, that can go backwards, and can also keep things like Vladimir out. However, it has been locked in for triple.
And it's pretty interesting in terms of those 2 champs alone in a team fight, because Vladimir you see very often, unless he's super fed, he's not one-shotting everyone. He's taking them down from like 100% HP to maybe 20, maybe 30%. Then you have a Pyke running around with the executes, things like that, so synergize very well together.
Certainly could be the case, and Shern's going to grab himself a Nocturne, champion that we've seen be banned a lot in the OPL, but not necessarily be picked all that much.
Yeah, I've seen mixed success across the board, and that is a very brave lock-in immediately. Obviously, red side, GP gets to ban away 2 things. See the Mundo. Do we see something like the Darius, a pretty bully-heavy lane up in the top side?
You can run Gangplank into Darius. I don't know whether you can run Gangplank into Nocturne Darius. That sounds a little bit more scary. But I don't think they would be all that worried about it. It's going to be Ornn taken away instead. So saying, young man, come to me in the carry versus carry matchup. This is where I made my mark as the best top laner in the OPL whilst I was on the Direwolves.
Yes.
So if you want to take the mantle, you got one shot at the champ.
And I love this. This is tracking so incredibly well. Of course, banning away the 2 tanks. We have seen so many GPs get through laning phase unscathed. With something like the Nocturne in Direwolves' hands, pre-level 6 is pretty hard to punish, but any damage on the top side to pair with that one, and GP will have a rough time.
And I mean, with Lucian Varus ban away, you would honestly expect Mash to pick up Ezreal. That seems to be something they were trying to force him onto. So interested to see King's counter pick now.
Yep, because we have seen this rise back into popularity. Ezreal Braum as a duo are actually incredibly strong in the laning phase, which isn't something you say about a lot of Ezreal lanes. King hovering the Malzahar.
So it's going to be... No, it's not. It's going to be Naratop.
So Vladimir is still being flexed between the middle lane, between the bottom lane as well. Have about 20 seconds to decide their last one if they... I feel like Vladimir Pyke is not the greatest matchup. Vladimir definitely struggles into an Ezreal Braum in sort of a 2 versus 1. If Cupcake wants to go for any roam plays, things like that, it could be rough for King.
Did you watch the Direwolves Instagram videos yesterday?
I believe so. I believe I'm up to date on Instagram stories.
Okay. Did you notice what the Direwolves were doing?
Playing basketball?
Yeah. Do you remember what happened the last time Direwolves played basketball before an OPL game?
Yes.
Well, if we could just get another look at Shern's wrist, please.
Oh, no.
There appears to be a bandage.
Weren't they playing football last time? Or was it basketball?
No, it was basketball.
No, it was.
Definitely was basketball.
They need to stop playing basketball.
Because Shern's got a bandage on his wrist, and it was Fantix last time that broke his arm. So it's going to be Aurelion Sol locked in right now, which is a pick that Remind is very good at, apparently, because it just gets banned all the time.
This is going to be the first time we've actually seen it. Patch 8.13, the entire time Aurelion Sol from Rift Rivals was basically just disabled, so teams didn't have to ban it away. Now, new patch, bugs have been fixed, so is now playable, and that's a spicy matchup.
Certainly is, and I think both teams would be very happy with what they have. Good early lane pressure from top side for the Direwolves and from bottom side for Mammoth, so going to look to fight fire with fire.
But I think the mid lane is going to be the most important, because this is Gragas, who has super high priority in the early game in terms of ganks. He can just pull the trigger immediately. You have a super high priority pressure laner like Aurelion Sol. He doesn't want to kill mid. He wants to bring the Gragas to the middle lane, threaten around, and then look to go punish the side lanes. They have CC with the Braum. Ezreal can dash forward, so I feel like Direwolves definitely going to have to watch out for that one.
And I think the last time the Direwolves lost a best of was against the Chiefs. And if memory serves me correctly, Swiffer's Aurelion Sol was the pick that turned that series.
That's interesting, because I would have been on that team.
You would have been on that team.
But I don't remember the game at all.
You are bad, though, because there are OPL players out there that remember every game they've ever played in. Like, I say to Spooks, mate, give me your best play, and he can say, like, you know, March the 2nd, 1992.
Can he? I'm impressed.
Whereas, and Swiffer does it as well, whereas I say, hey, Bryce, what did you play this morning? And you say, let me check my match history.
Yeah, I can't remember anything. I have super bad like recollection of a game that I literally just played. I'll play solo queue and be like I won't remember what happened.
You have to write down notes of what happened in the game you just casted.
Yeah, it's a disaster. At least I write the notes, so I do remember.
Yeah, I applaud the professionalism. However, we are on to Summoner's Rift. Game number 1 of Direwolves versus Mammoth. And Sharp, do you remember the games that you used to play?
I remember some of them. I remember either the very, very bad ones or the very, very good ones.
Do you remember the game where I was playing Shen?
Yes, I know what you're going to say. I've heard this story 1,000 times, the Olaf Shen.
What about the Minky Whale Hecarim game?
Yeah, I do remember that, because I remember I messed up. So I was lagging in that game, and I messed up. And I died once, and then after that, I just like full triggered because I had no respect on Minky at the time. I thought he wasn't a very good player, so I was very immature, so I was like, oh, screw this guy, man.
Right now, very mature, obviously, and the Direwolves looking good at the moment. Talk to me about BioPanther going up against Chippies. What did you do as a coach to try and keep him calm and, you know, try and just treat it as any other week, as I'm sure you're going to give me the answer for right now? Was there anything going into this one?
To be honest, honestly, there was zero. I think there was actually zero conversation around versing Chippies.
Oh.
I mean, to be honest, I didn't even really, even myself as a coach, I didn't really think about this, even in terms of my preparation, that much. I think I looked at Mammoth across the board, outside of Chippies as well. Like, I think Remind and Kuden have been popping off recently as well. So I think that obviously Chippies has his strengths, but I think that it's rude not to give those other players the credit they need.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about Remind. I want to ask about the Aurelion Sol we're now seeing on screen. First time we've actually seen this in the OPL. Has been banned away from Remind so much. Is that anything that you are worried about? He's such a niche champion.
Yeah, I think, I mean, across the world, I think A-Sol is just one of those champs that everyone hates versing in solo queue. Has some very obvious strengths. Usually gets to shove 1 to 6 against pretty much any matchup. So, again, we'll be looking to see how Triple can hold out in those early phases and see if we can make sure we call out those roams.
see whether they're able to get it done. The last question I want to ask you is that you're getting very close to putting MEO on lock. You know, you're up there in points right now. The team is humming very well, but little bit of a slip up against Bombers last week, which I'm sure you weren't happy with. How are you trying to keep the team very grounded right now through it's a rough patch of the split week 7. You're getting towards the end, but you're still trying to keep people, you know, a little bit more relaxed about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that people are excited about Melbourne Esports Open, and I think that as a team, we're very much, again, I think to kind of get away from that hype, we've really tried to ground ourselves in focusing on our next opponent week by week, and I think that Mammoth definitely posed a threat to us, so it kind of kept us very focused as a team.
All right, well, best of luck in this series. Of course, that was Sharp, coach of the Direwolves. Meanwhile, mid lane, we see Juves going in for a bit of a cheeky look here. We'll just walk up and hit the wave instead. Remind is so Juves going to help him go back.
No real follow-up damage there, especially with the wave being between Juves. He wasn't in flash distance over the top to then body slam and couldn't really body slam flash, so there was no way to get onto triple. Ultimately was completely safe. And everything just backs away. Things kind of tracking as you expect so far. Shern walking into the top side right now because Juve showed on bottom side of mid. You see the GP getting shoved in by the Nara as well. Just a very standard laning phase between these two teams.
Yeah, we actually just watched Chippy's walk past the lane. Looks like he's trading a lot of his health for just the parlay shots onto Biopanther, trying to get him in kill threat range. And of course, with Kleptomancy, he's still able to build up that income. So not all that bad that he's down a couple of CS at the moment.
Because as we were talking about in Champ Select, Nocturne really doesn't have a whole lot of pressure up here. Unless Biopanther somehow is getting into Mega Gnar form onto the Gangplank, then you can just hold your oranges for the Nocturne coming in with the Fear, things like that. So there's a whole lot of safety up here. He's just going to give himself a little bit of a ward and ultimately just be okay.
So we'll see this one continue to turn into a farm lane. It's going to be the Darkseal picked up for the mid laner in Remind. Look to see him get active on the map now that he has the minion dematerializer active. Meanwhile, Juves goes down bottom.
Because he hasn't left the lane in terms of going elsewhere. He hasn't gone top, he hasn't gone bot. You saw immediately, nobody can contest an Aurelion Soul at level 1, so pushed in that wave, went and warded the Raptors. That allowed Juves to wrap back around. Now comes back, as you mentioned, with the Darkseal, goes topside and places down a pink. So in terms of forward vision, Mammoth definitely have the advantage with that extra ward around the Wolf camp on Direwolf side of the map. So they're doing a good job of just trying to track Shernfire and keep tabs on where he is.
And this is what Aurelion Soul will do every time. Ducks into Fog of War recall. Now bottom lane doesn't know whether he's actually coming bot or whether he's gone back to base to restock that that Corrupting Potion, get himself some boots. And you saw how respectfully both King and Cupcake had to play against this pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Crab will be actually started by Shernfire. Juve's tracking down here, but the fact that Remind actually just went for a recall and didn't have priority on the wave, it gave Triple some time to be able to shove that one in. Kind of unlucky for Mammoth that it spawned on the bottom side of the map where Direwolves have that pressure and not around with the pink wall top side, because if that was flipped, you expect Shernfire would have been a lot more hesitant and trying to take that one down early.
You can see right now that Chippy's is walk back to base whilst Biopanther has TP'd, so global advantage right now for Mammoth. Remind is falling down a little bit in CS, however.
Straight up missing creeps there. This is a bit of a roam coming up from Cupcake. Juve stuck between the Raptors.
Certainly is, but that is a big stun. That is a big two-man ultimate, and Remind is going forward. Juves maybe should have stayed with him. Kuda now rotating over. Good hook from Cupcake. However, going to have to dash over this wall if he can. Flash will have to be used because a great collapse coming out of Kuda to Mash.
Yeah, and that was a 2 versus 3 for the longest time, but the fact that King is on Vladimir, he doesn't really want to rotate pre-6. Cupcake doesn't have a whole lot of damage at this point, and there's so much CC onto multiple people between the Gragas, between the Aurelion Soul. Ultimately, they do just get out with the collapse of Mammoth's bottom lane. It does mean nobody dies. Everyone goes back to laning phase. TP is burnt by Mash because he went back to pick up his tier.
See, Triple tried to stop the recall from Remind. He goes back, gets himself the Swifties. I like Swifty boots. They don't get bored enough.
Yep. You think so?
Yeah, I actually do.
The most eye-popping moment I ever saw Swifties was the first time I was actually playing against Licrit at a wildcard event, and he bought Swifties on Tahm Kench. And I was like a Moby Boots early or like a Tabby Merc Trade guy, and I never even considered them. And I'm just like, man, that guy is a genius. Like, the extra little bit of move speed in combat is so useful to, like, shave half a second off. And that's the difference between, like, your carry getting hit by a shockwave, things like that. It's one of those niche items that can be super cool.
Yeah, I reckon they might be. I reckon the Swifties might be my
Is that
not that bad.
Yeah. What was it last week? It was Rylai's.
Yeah, Rylai's Crystal Scepter. And no one bought it, so I was a little bit
What?
disappointed.
No, we saw one Rylai's. I think it was on a Talia jungle.
Okay,
Because you talked about it on cast.
okay. But Rylai's not that bad. You can see right now in top lane, Chippy's doing an absolute fine job of farming up a Storm. He got his Sheen first back, so the game is over. I don't understand why we're currently still on the server.
There's no
Just go
need.
next.
Absolutely. I feel like it's pretty rough for Mammoth, the fact that their play was rotated on very well by Cupcake on the bottom side of mid. Sure, nobody died, but it means that Juves lost his flash, which is his big gank tool, 3-6, that he has the advantage over Schönfire. Now this is a Nocturne who's actually 2 camps up over the Gragas. His mid laner is up in CS just by farming better than his opponent, things like that. So they've kind of got through the hardest part of the laning phase completely unscathed in terms of the jungle matchup.
Shern, however, is going on top lane. That's a big ultimate from Biopanther. Good stopwatch will be used, however, no flash from Juves. Oranges will mean he's not K. Over the wall goes Shern. And now Juves is in trouble. Shockwave will land. That is 2 kills.
And that is a big commit from Chippies. Blows the flash on ultimately like 1 HP in a 2 versus 3. The rotate there was quicker from Triple than the Aurelion Soul somehow. And they just both die. That's first blood and an extra kill going over.
Now that's 1,300 gold. Teleport will get Chippies back to that creep wave. 3 ultimates used versus just 2. However, Direwolves now just complete topside control.
Yes, 100%. Bottom lane basically even between the two. Backs have come out here. No real way to pressure through that one. So King goes defensive, goes for the Kindle Gem and the CDR boots to just try and farm it up down here. And that's ultimately fine, but the solo lanes from Mammoth, especially the Aurelion Soul, this is the first time we've seen it and really hasn't been able to find a way onto the map. You expect things to have happened by now, but they just haven't.
Take another look at it.
And that's already Biopanther in a very good position. Before Schönfire even comes through, that's Meganar just about to time out, gets the last minute ultimate onto the wall. GP has to burn the oranges, and Schönfire coming through just has the damage to clean up the kill. Triple answers with Juves, who is already flashless, we talked about, so no real avenue for counterplay, and they both just die.
Yeah, and you're losing in CS in nearly every single role on Summoner's Rift right now, apart from Pyke, who's got himself a coin. And you're losing in the fact that Shern has just been able to build such a tempo lead, such an experience lead. Now that you give over the 2 kills, things just not looking all that good at the moment.
It's not looking all that good. It's not dire straits at this point. They have very good scaling with the Ezreal, with the Gangplank, so it's not like this is an early game comp that's fallen extremely far behind already. Direwolves match scaling decently well. Orianna, Vladimir, 2 very big late game mages. They don't really have sustained attack damage from any of their carries. Nocturne is a one-shot bot. Nah, as he tracks later into the game, is more about his CC. But Direwolves certainly firm control of the early game so far. As Schönfire is going to sweep his way through the middle lane. But Reminder's just being shoved in on the Aurelion Soul. This is absolutely not what you expect at this point. Has the Swifties early purchased, and that first blood, the first kill going over to Triple.
I think the big thing here is that Triple's able to approach the wave kind of unharassed. And Reminder's a little bit worried about it. However, that stun just going short. Could have potentially been a gank setup.
Yeah, 100%. There's bottom lane completely rotating already. Went up towards the river. Juves in bot side jungle as well. This is 3 members in the top side. Cupcake has walked all the way from base.
Yeah, that's going to be Paranoia pop as well. Will pop the keg. However, Cupcake with a nice execute will mean they get out to safety. 2 members are heading up here. That is going to be an Ezreal ultimate as well. However, remind you can't go that way. We'll have to flash the wall. Very nice flash over with Triple. Keg will go wide. Bit more of a party from Juves. And he has the flash, but can he actually get to safety? I would argue no. He flashes down instead. Biopanther goes after him, says, mate, have a clock tower. And he just jumps on his head like it's Super Mario Brothers. That's another 3 kills.
And everything going wrong for Mammoth. They're not making the proactive play. They're answering the Direwolves, and every single time greedy flashes coming out of the members, and they're just falling down. That's the late rotation. Kuden walked from base towards the top side, but it was way too late at that point. Cupcake had already done the damage, and we're going to see that one very quickly. Last week, we saw so many botch dives, and unfortunately for Mammoth this time, Direwolves pull it off supremely, very easy. King still probably has the pull, so ultimately will be fine there, and backs away.
And now it is close to the 4,000 gold. And
11 minutes.
That's getting very scary.
And this is a lineup from Mammoth that have to go forwards. Aurelion Soul, if he's behind, struggles to deal damage because he needs to be tanky enough to be relatively close to the front line for his stars to actually be ticking and hitting on the members you want. Hook into stun actually lands onto Kuden there, so cops a bit of damage. And not to mention Juves as well. Every single time he's been in a position to ever set up a play, moments before he's lost his flash to a botched engage or something like that, so really hasn't had the early pressure he needs.
Also, solo tank on this lineup pretty much.
Yep.
So it has to go Cinder Hulk, which is not the best farming build for Gragas. Would much prefer to go Runic Echoes.
Yeah, because normally you see Runic into tank items, into Knight's Vow, stuff like that, but he's gone straight tanky Cinder.
Saw it out of Spooks as well last week. I think it is just if you are going to be the only person picking up those kind of stats for your team.
Yep. He is the only one of this team that's ever going to start a fight. Braum is a tanky member in the bottom lane, but not like an Ali, not like a Rakan, anything like that can actually start an engage. More defensive, more follow-up, so he's going to be the front man. Cupcake's done very well this game to move around the map. Floated up to the skirmish in the jungle, floated up top side and assisted with a dive up there and is now contesting the river.
Teleport actually going to come in.
Yeah.
That will be from King. So that will secure Scuttle Crab for sure.
Yeah, but it's interesting to deploy for Direwolves right now. They broke top tower, but they haven't flipped the map or anything like that. As Biopanther actually is looking to get onto Chippy's level lead.
Certainly is, and he's going to get the slow from the Boomerang. That's a hyper proc. He's zooming, however, Remind is now here. The fight might have been turned around. That's a Gangplank ultimate. However, Biopanther is going to look for the 2v1. Big damage coming out. Will pick up Chippies. Will get shut down eventually by the ultimate. And now you can see Shern in a little bit of trouble. Where the Kuden flashes on him, he does, but a great spell shield out of Shern. And he will get knocked up by the ultimate. Tag will be there. That is the stun. Goes Golden with the stopwatch. Can they knock him back? Juve doesn't go for it. He gets the flash out. What is happening to Mammoth right now? Cupcake looking for another kill in the top lane. Does he have the ultimate available? Yes, he does. And Triple just says, mate, I'm going to take it for myself.
And what is happening describes this perfectly. Every single thing going wrong. Sure, eventually they trade the kill onto Biopanther, but that was a 2 versus 1. Aurelion Sol GP versus the Nari picks it up easily. Klepto means that Chippy still does have gold. If this was a Grasp and was still losing, there's no way he would be anywhere close to his Triforce at this point, but this is just disastrous across the board.
And that was a strange play from Jubes. If you're a full tank Gragas, you can afford to sit under that turret with your support. However, back to A, did get everything from Shern as we take another look.
And I'm just surprised, after the stopwatch, which is very nice from Shernfire, baits in the E, baits them to commit. Why don't you just throw the ulti immediately before kind of farting around outside of turret range? They get the same response in the back. They get the flash anyway, as Reminders desperately trying to win on the top side. 2 versus 1. Peak went up there with the roam, was responsible for the trade onto Biopanther, and unfortunately, Cupcake did enough to kind of just keep him around for the Orianna to walk up there and take down the kill.
And if we could take another look at the gold, please, Mr. Spectator. It's going to be 2,000 of it on Shern. So of the 5,000 lead, Shern is holding the lion's share.
Yep. And that hurts. That 100% hurts. Nocturne is one of those champions that if he's ahead is super hard to deal with as an AD carry, as a squishy solo laner like the Gangplank. You saw Mash actually not going for the Triforce build, goes for the Iceborne Gold Lord because he knows he just cannot get one-shot by the Nocturne or fights are going to be heavily one-sided. So already 15 minutes in is having to go for the more defensive build, and that just kind of speaks to what's happening this game.
Another Paranoia top lane will be flashed out of the way. However, they continue the chase. Members collapsing up here now, and Shern is in big trouble, looking to try and block the keg with that spell shield, but will still just fall down. Chippy gets himself another kill.
Overextending in the top side, so Shernfire loses his life. On the other side of the map, Direwolves are answering in 2 lanes, so it's not all bad, but that's definitely not the outcome they were hoping for. Chippy's able to live with a summoner on the backside. Triple has got this turret incredibly low. Remind has a few members around to help him.
Stun will land, however, and now there is a Gragas coming in. Body slam is available. Ults him back. Actually kegs the wrong thing. And then gets outplayed. Triple. What was that?
What is going on? Jubes absolutely whips everything, Chippies.
I'm sorry, Chippies, my friend. Gets flashed on, tries to eat oranges, but unfortunately is not K. Shut down for Biopanther.
And in Champ Select, when they locked in the Gangplank, we were saying this is Chippies taking the fight to Biopanther. Can he answer? Well, absolutely, well and truly he can. Chippies definitely in a hole. This is going to be a super rough transition into already like game number 2. Like, this isn't done by any means, but tracking further on into the series, losing this hard, this early, definitely has to be playing on his mind.
Just has to be the whole team floating up there. You mentioned already, triple rotating first for that first blood. Shern's, every ultimate Shern has used has been onto Chippies. So the whole team just shutting down this Gangplank. And now, if Biopanther backs and gets himself the Frozen Mallet, he will just be soloable.
Yep, because he's looking for that split push build is just going straight for that one. This isn't going to be a team fight now, building a random wins or anything like that. And it's interesting that Mammoth are playing directly into what Direwolves want in this situation. Hold that, Kuden. Might be in a bit of trouble there. Shockwave
Will land onto him, will try and jump back. However, that is a very nice shutdown. Hook is on for Cupcake, and now Remind in some trouble. Juice body slams forward. He's missed another body slam. As you mentioned, no ulti. He'll get hooked back over the wall, and the slow is there, but they cannot find the damage.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Mammoth are playing into everything the Direwolves are doing. This is a concerted team effort to shut down Chippies, and every time they went top, Mammoth went up there to answer. They weren't making a play on the other side of the map, so King on this Vladimir is now level 11, has rank 2 ultimate, has his first item completely untouched. The fact that Cupcake is actually looking for a pick onto Juice, doesn't pull out the hook, but he's roamed all over the map, and the Ezreal Braum haven't been able to punish, and now they're in a hole.
Juves is in big trouble, has to flash back towards the turret. That is a nice gangplank ultimate. Exhaust is on. Good flank coming through from Remind. However, Paranoia does shut down the play, and that is a turret falling down and another one in the top lane.
Yeah, nah, just 1v0 in the backside. Mash is actually going forward here. Huge chunk.
He nearly gets one hit, and Kuden now dives forward, tries to save his AD carry. Juice misses another body slam. Just cannot hit one. Does have ultimate, but gets hooked back into the team. Tries to ult for disengage for a proto belt into the queue, and Juice will fall. Cupcake picks up the kill.
And Mammoth are just not a game 1 team. Versus AV last week, the draft was in all sorts, fell down incredibly early and just really struggled to make it back in. And honestly, this is looking like the same trajectory. They had tools to play with, but just weren't being the proactive team, weren't making those plays. And Direwolves just punishing everywhere.
Biopanther, not only does he have himself a Frozen Mallet working on a Black Cleaver, now has himself a red buff as well to just be even more annoying. King, meanwhile, on the bottom lane, pushing out that wave as we take another look.
And Mash just went very aggressive. Kuden wasn't in position initially to block any of the QW damage from Orianna. Cupcake, once again, hits Juves with a fancy feed, and body slam goes incredibly wide, so Kuden has to flash out. Juves tries to use the ulti, but there's just no way he's living on the back end of this one. And Pyke is just so good at chasing. We've seen it week after week. If you ever misstep, the short cooldown on his Q, he's very mobile with the dashes around, has the invisibility, so it's super frustrating to deal with. And when you do make that overstep, he just punishes you so hard.
And now the gold is ballooned. 7,000 still. You know, 3,000 of it is on Shern. So 4,000 between the rest of them. And really, the rest of it is on triple. Everywhere else is fairly even.
Klepto keeping Chippies in the game here is only 500 down from the Nard, despite only having 1 item to almost 2. We have reached the 20-minute mark, so Baron is now up and available. Direwolves comp, not that great at doing that one. They probably just want to set up some vision and look for picks like they have been this entire game. They haven't opted in for any sort of team fight, but they're no slouches in that regard either. They have the Vladimir, they have the Orianna. With a fed Nocturne, he has a Duskblade. He's absolutely going to be able to one-shot or at least take down like 90% of someone's HP if he ever goes in.
Will be a little bit more difficult onto Mash, as he's got Iceborne Gauntlet as well as Tabby.
Yep.
But, you know, someone like Juves, even someone like Chippies right now, certainly is fair game.
And that's the thing, right? Mash has to go Gauntlet and he has to go Tabbies to live from the Nocturne. But then really, outside of the Nocturne, the 2 big damage threats are AP, Orianna and the Vladimir. It's not the Gnar that he's worrying about, it's the damage threats from the mid lane and bottom lane as well, so has to invest super hard into armor to even survive the fight, and then is going to have to play around 2 AP users anyway. So it's super rough for him.
Potentially, I think, you know, you can still go QSS, still get yourself towards a Merc Scimitar. You know, Maw has always been an okay item on Ezreal as well.
Yep.
Double tier build will help him out in the long run. I think out of everyone on the team, Mash probably deals with the enemy comp the best.
Yep.
I mean, Aurelion Sol and Gangplank, when they're behind, are just not very useful champions by any stretch of the imagination.
A little bit stinky cheese there as Biopanther is going to solo out another turret. That's 4-0 at this point. Mammoth haven't really had any control on the maps whatsoever. You can see vision control topside now just bouncing back in Mammoth's favor. The members from Direwolves just went for a recall, so they get their pink wards in the jungle. Their ward line is very defensive. They haven't progressed far enough to even place anything towards the river, more closer to the Baron. They have gone for double blue trinket here to try and dissuade. They have Ezreal ulti to check, as well as Gangplank ulti, so they have the tools to stall this one out. It's just going to come down to ability to find farm in the side lanes and play around the windows that Direwolves will look to punish.
And I think the tankless aspect of the Direwolves comp will play on their mind as well. They've got a stopwatch now on Biopanther. However, still not going to be the tankiest lineup in League of Legends. They really do need him for the turn. So the only way they can really do Baron right now is if they win a very clean team fight.
As Juves' life is just getting a little bit worse as his race Raptors are just getting counter jungle time and time again. He was about 30 CS down last time we checked in, now 60 in the jungle, doesn't even have his first completed item. Just going for that Gargoyle. The old GA build now into Stone Plate because it is so much value if you can just use it initially. We are seeing it more in Korean junglers. I was talking to Spooks, he was telling me all about it. Because at one item, you can just proc it in the middle of a team fight, and you can just get the value immediately. If you use the items active correctly, then you don't really care about the resist, but they're just so tanky, and you buy some time when, if you go for just a tanky build and you're still behind, you die pretty quick anyway.
Yeah, completely agrees. We see top lane, that's going to be a hard engage onto King. He's zooming away, however, with the use of Spellbinder, as well as, no, actually, that was just going to be the Predator. Didn't
even pop the item, so holds on to 73 of his stacks. Interesting to see that he has gone for the Predator. More in bottom lane, we see the Electrocute. I think also as time's gone on, we've seen more Spellbook, switching out summoners, so you have access to the Ghost, but just goes for the old school Vlad build, goes for that Predator, and wants the speed to get into the backline.
Yeah, I still think Predator's very good.
Yep.
We see Chippy's just still trying to farm up in this lane. He's 40 CS down, however, has got a second item.
As Infernal Drake is actually the one that spawns, so Direwolf's playing this fairly slow, pressuring in all the lanes. Mammoth are contesting the top vision once again, like they have to around the Baron, but that does just mean Direwolves flip the map. They go bot, looking to take down one of the last remaining inner ring of turrets, and they can just fall back to Infernal Drake. The first one was air. Nobody really cares about it, but now this Infernal spawns. It's pretty rough for Direwolf.
And Biopanther putting on a clinic of hitting barrels. That turret will fall down, and there is nothing they can do to really contest this dragon right now.
And I can tell you from experience, that is one of the most satisfying things to do in competitive League of Legends. Chippies, he can't hit his barrels, he doesn't do any damage whatsoever. Biopanther on the Gnar, going for this like split push damage build. Makes a lot easier there, and definitely getting in the head of his opponent.
I think that's an understatement. I think
he's in there already.
Yeah, he's set up residence.
Yep. Pitch to 10. He's in line for the prime release.
So we just see them pushing out all three for the sideways. Cupcake getting very rich right now, 4-0 and 2.
Yeah.
Putting his name in there for best PyCon server.
Ah, yeah. Absolutely. Who have we seen? We've seen
Rosie,
Jake, Trance played one, I believe. Kuden obviously had some monstrous games. Cupcake, as you mentioned.
We've been waiting for Rogue to play it because we said he's kind of like new Thresh-esque.
I've seen him play it in solo queue, but they haven't put it out in competitive.
Is there a reason for it? Was he solo queue okay?
His solo queue's pretty good. He actually demolished me. Okay, I have a bit of a gripe here because when I obviously don't play as much solo queue as I used to, but when I queue up, I see Rogue is online and then he queues up.
Oh really?
Yeah. He's a bully.
You reckon he's stalking
Yes,
you?
he wants to snipe me. And I mean...
Does he actively say that? Does he send you like winky faces and stuff?
No. But
that's what I would do.
Yeah, but you'd be very blatant about it. Like he wants to get in my head. But now I've called him out, so I'm not letting him. And also he sniped me last night and I won the game. So now the tides have turned. And he's still playing professionally and I'm not, so get owned.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a top lane thing. However, we have got a death cap pickup right now for Triple King working on his as well. Hookie's onto Mash. Once again, reappearing in Not That Bad. Ryle as Crystal Scepter for Remind has been picked up on the Aurelion Soul.
And Mammoth are just looking to force something. All of a sudden, they're not opting in for the 1-3-1. They're not catching all of the side lanes. That's an Orianna just pushing in topside absolutely for free. They've decided that 26 minutes, now that third items are being completed by Direwolves, their ability to set up around the Baron is now pretty good. They are tanky enough to do it, so they invest multiple members, sack some farm in the side lane to just force the vision play. Triple is stuck in a bit of a risky situation
Certainly is, and the exhaust is down. There wasn't really any abilities left for him to use, and they use an ultimate as well. Mash will shut him down. Over the back goes Biopanther, only gets one member with the ult, and that will be the execute. King over the wall. So much damage. However, will now be stunned up underneath the turret. It's a 2-for-2, and Direwolves do have to turn around. Shernish just still split pushing bot.
This is just old school Shernfire, not the Vi of old, but now the Nocturne straight up jungler split pushing in the bottom lane. That's going to be an inhib turret.
Certainly is, and he's 100 CS up right now. Would be multiple items. You see Chippies goes down, grabs the farm, but another turret top lane. They're 13,000 gold down, Bryce.
Yep. But I think the gold lead played a big part of that. Triple well and truly did get caught in that regard, was stuck between multiple members. Actually, that's a flash from Kuden and a deep TP.
Certainly is. Teleport going to come across. That will be the ultimate use from Shern to just try and dissuade the chase.
And he does!
And they will back away.
Oh, that is disastrous for Mammoth. He's now showing on the bottom lane. And the gig is up, and now he's just still split pushing, but the Nocturne, the Paranoia, saves BioPanther well and truly.
He's 4 levels up on Jude.
Oh, he is a monster, and this was very sketch. Triple blows absolutely everything to try and live. King actually only gets a one-man ulti, and as does Bio. Uses the pull early, so when he goes over and picks up a very nice kill onto Mash, he does lose his life immediately, so sure it is a 4 versus 5, but Mammoth pick up a good few set of kills there. Direwall's not clean in any respect of the word. Maybe a little bit of miscommunication. Shernfire on the bottom side is like, look, my ulti wasn't actually up because it was about 10 to 15 seconds from being available, so there was no way he was getting to the play, and Direwalls with the gold lead make the best of a bad situation.
And still no summoner spells available apart from Smite and Mash's Teleport. And now they are starting to fall down in every role. 5,000 of it is on Shern.
He's so big.
3 levels and 5,000 gold price.
Level 16 now has Tier 3 ulti. Hook is just going to scrape the backside of Gragas. It's probably falling out of his pants, so makes sense.
I have not seen a jungler this far ahead in a very long time. Cupcake will get tagged. However, now King on a very deep flank.
Yep. He's looking to get into the backside. Has the Predator, has the Spellbook. Only 50 stacks, and they choose to not pull the trigger on the play. Direwall's in not what we saw last week, but in classic Direwalls fashion, are just playing this incredibly slow. They haven't started up the Baron. They haven't even hit the Baron literally once this game, so have absolutely no priority placed on that objective. Now with this turret gone, BioPanther's life is a little bit easier. He can just take some chip damage on the inhib.
Does need to be a little bit concerned about the collapse coming out of Remind, and Chippy's doing a good job to clear out the waves. See Remind now looking to get in behind him. However, back ping comes out.
They know exactly what's going on, so back pings come out. BioPanther walks away, and Remind does absolutely the same thing here. King on the top side still shoving in this wave, so if Mammoth ever try and contest the Baron through the Raptor Pit, as Juice is trying to do, sure, there's members around here to bully him, but King will get a deep flank in the rest of the members as well.
Yeah, and it looks like they want to go. That's going to be Paranoia. They go on to Juves. He does not have any tank ability, and King and Cupcake just absolutely wash the back end of the team fight. Beautiful ult from BioPanther, beautiful ult from Triple. They will now look towards Remind. Good kegs over the wall. Will try and keep them back, but already 3 dead.
5 versus 2, trying to defend the base here. Direwalls not interested in starting up the Baron, so the fact that a Barrel does lane clears out the wave, and they're looking for more.
2-man stun will go there. However, Hook onto Chippies will try and drag him back. He gets another keg over the wall, and he's looking to just try and defend the base as a one-man army. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, BioPanther is taking that inhibitor, and finally it looks like this mid lane turret will fall down.
Yeah, but he's bought so much time, from 30 seconds now to 10 on the rest of the members. BioPanther, as you mentioned, will get the bottom inhib. He's incredibly low on the backside of here. Megadar pops.
Certainly does, and maybe he'll fall into GA as well, trying to get over that wall. Keg will go down, and they will try and pick up a clean kill here. Will go to Remind.
Loses his GA as well, so that's super rough from the Nara. And that was a flank from multiple sides for the Direwalls. BioPanther actually came straight up through the base to land an ulti onto multiple people. Wombo into the Orianna as well, so a very nice setup. They do get one inhib. It's not the middle lane, but probably better to be in the bottom side. Honestly, Chippy's now TP list will have to be dealing with those super creeps in the bottom side.
Certainly will be, but this is going to be a multiple Baron game if Mammoth come back into it. I mean, they're 15,000 gold down, and that is going to be Shern going on to Chippies, and one hitting him. Actually, it looks like Chippies is turning this one around, will eventually fall down.
Scoreline isn't pretty, has fallen incredibly far behind early on into the game, but Klepto is doing gangplank things around the inhib, almost one-man armied, as you said, defended that one, defended the turret for so long. He's 2,000 down, maybe 1.2, and in a game where your team is like 15 down, that's honestly pretty good.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you're still a gangplank.
Yep.
3, 5, and 2, he's got 100% KP. The game really has been played around him, but it's just always been on the Direwolves' terms.
And with GP not having access to the TP, and the fact that Direwolves are almost approaching the 18 level mark across multiple members. Shernfire already hit it. This is the time that they're setting up around the Baron.
5 levels down is Juice. However, once upon a time, let me tell you, he did outsmite Levi, and maybe this is the time for him to go for it again.
And are they looking for the contest? Ulti comes over the wall. Juves is honestly trying to outsmart this one. Hooks.
Gets hooked, has to flash back over. However, Body Slam now goes back in. Uses that stone plate. They're backing away from it, but Shern is about to die. And Juves is in the pit. 1,000 health left. We'll get it within smite range, and we'll pick it up. Mammoth steal Baron.
And what is going on the backside? Ezreal falls down incredibly low.
And that will only be Chippies and Remind back up and alive versus 4 members, but Juves got the Baron. Shern fell down. If they can just live for the 30 seconds, they might still be able to stay in there.
And how does he do it every single time? Recall will come out of Biopanther, so maybe he just TPs back to the mid lane. They might just look to end 30 seconds on Ezreal, 30 seconds on the Gragas, but Chippy showed before he can defend these non-Baroned up minions.
He certainly can, and they still have the mage in the mid lane. 10 seconds left on Kuden. Is their base going to be alive? Certainly not, but they just might be able to hold the Nexus. And if Lord of the Rings told me anything, mate, it's if you just wait for the weird wizard in the white hat and he shows up, you still have a crack.
Who's the weird wizard in the white hat?
Gandalf.
No, like,
oh, in this comp?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably Gragas.
Okay, yeah. Maybe using the wrong skin, but we see this one again. Shernfire is so incredibly low, and Juves now popping the stone plate in the pit. You see Direwolves don't prioritize him at all. That was mostly the damage from Baron plus Gangplank that actually took him down. So Juves cleans up the kill. Smite fight versus no one. On the backside, Direwolves, of course, with a 15,000 gold lead, just absolutely clean up the fight. TP wasn't there from GP initially, so Chippies didn't even try and join the play, and Remind on the Aurelion Soul hits the E button and flies over every single wall, so those are the 2 to live, but all of a sudden it's an Air Drake that spawns. That sucks for Direwolves. Sure, they have a huge gold lead, but giving the Baron over might just mean that Mammoth have the ability to stall.
Certainly could be. This is still...
Yep.
Pushing it uphill, if you will. However, they have got a Gangplank that is now on 5 items. Is nearly done.
You said 5 items. You're not going with 4? I thought we decided it's 4 until you hit 6, and then it's 6. 5 doesn't exist.
All right, he's got 4 items
Okay, there we go. We're consistent, at least. As Direwolves now just pushing every single wave into the base. They have double super creeps. Gangplank deals with them very well, as you just saw, but over time, if Direwolves can set them up to crash at the same time, it gets harder and harder.
That's what it comes down to, getting to crash, holding creep waves so you can get, 2, 3, 4 super creeps in each of them. And then making them, just push onto the next at the same time. They're trying to keep Baron distributed onto creeps. Baron actually deals very well with super creeps at this stage.
Yep. Because it is interesting, the wave manipulation is something you talk about in the early game and in terms of setting up dives, but once you get to mid-late game, you don't really talk about it all that much, but it is still super important in terms of sieging bases. Juves takes a little bit of a chunk. Everybody deals damage at this point, no void stuff, but the magic pen from the Oblivion Orb definitely there from the Orianna.
And the problem is they can't fight. However, that is going to be one turret going down, so they might not have a choice. Cupcake does get chunked out. Biopanther about to go Mega, and they are just looking to hold one Nexus turret.
And if anyone is going to engage, it has to be Juves, and eventually something is going to have to happen here. Multiple waves, and Inhib has just respawned in the bottom lane, but Direwolves already surrounding it. It's dead before it was even up and alive.
Yeah, we'll give them a brief respite from double super creeps. As we see now, another creep wave being pushed in by Shernfire.
But I feel like ultimately 1 turret is much easier to defend than 2. You can stick all of your members onto one side. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but one of them was always just going to drop to the creeps when you're dealing with members on the other side. So Cupcake, his job in this situation is to be constantly fishing for hooks. If one ever does land, then Direwolves can pull.
In they go, they get Biopanther back underneath. He's not going to be able to transform. He goes into GA. Huge ultimate coming across from King, and will go into pool. That's a big shockwave onto 3 members. Biopanther goes down, and now Juves actually gets the stun onto Shernfire, but they are in full-blown retreat. Reset for Cupcake, and his Mash and Chippies available. And boys, you have to fight. You can't retreat. The Nexus is now under fire. Cupcake looking for it. Chippy's still there. Hook is on. Flashes forward. Will shut down the Orianna. But Shern has just focused out the Nexus and won game 1 for the Direwolves.
With the creeps, the Nocturne just sits there hitting down the Nexus. Absolutely not ignorable there. And they take down the win. That last fight honestly looked close in the middle before the execute started coming out from the pike. Mammoth were doing well to hold in there, given what, the 15, 20k at that point gold lead. Fell incredibly far behind that game, but overall, Direwolves, they play it slow, they play it like the Direwolves, and come up with a victory.
Certainly do. I think you're happy with that one, apart from maybe the Baron setup. But they attacked the Gangplank early. They show you can still put this champion down. You can build a big gold lead on a farming jungler like Nocturne. And Shern took over the game.
Yep, well and truly did. What was it, like 5,000 gold lead at certain points over the Gragas? That is super rough there. The man on your screen was the Gragas and had a very rough time.
What do? You have to sit there and ponder life after an experience like that. He was 5 levels up.
Yep.
And 6,000 gold.
But he was 5 levels up, 6,000 gold, and lost to Baron. He absolutely did. So there was definitely kinks in the armor there for the Direwolves. Overall, very clean. But yeah, I don't know. Game 1 for Mammoth just looks like, in terms of like recency bias, like in the last few weeks, just looks super rough. Last week versus AV, absolutely. Like the draft, I think, was in shambles. We were talking about it. We asked Vicarious. He said it was just misplay at level 1, things like that. But they really didn't have ways to come back in. And this time for Mammoth, they had tools, they had the Gragas, they had the Aurelion Soul to take things early, but they just never did. You know what I mean? They look for that early skirmish, they lose Juves' flash, and from that point, it was just the Direwolves show, and Schoenfire gets to 6 and just takes over.
Yeah, and the bottom lane just didn't do all that much this game, to be frank. The Ezreal scaled up, but Mash was never really relevant. Couldn't try his best, but was kept on the opposite side of the map of the play, which is what a lot of our criticism for supports when you're losing top is you just have to leave eventually, and didn't seem to be the case. So, I mean, how do you actually change that? That's such a big change to make in the first next couple of minutes.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, there are options. Their draft meant that Kuden was kind of tied to the bottom lane. Ezreal will scale, and as Braum, you don't have too many opportunities. It's not Kuden on Pyke being able to roam around. That's what we saw Cupcake do. But you can just flip the map. Chippies is like, look, I'm a gangplank. I'm happy to just sack a lead now, give it to Gnar, and lose my turret, and just flip the map and do things like that. So there are options, but Mammoth just didn't make any plays. Once the middle lane and jungle duo fell behind, they just quite literally didn't do anything until their backs were against the wall and they had to force a Baron. That worked, but they only held on for another 5 minutes after that point, and then they lost.
Yeah, it certainly was rough. The game was played always on Direwolves' term, and that means they will pick up game number 1. However, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Nick after these quick highlights.
Thanks to Hungry Jacks, you can win a trip for 2 to the 2018 World's Grand Final in Korea. To enter, head to ost.lolesports.com/worlds-trip and fill out your details. The trip includes flights, transfers, accommodation, and tickets to the 2018 World's Grand Final. All thanks to Hungry Jacks.
Hungry Jack's new pulled beef burger. Slow-cooked pulled beef with crispy slaw and paired perfectly with new pulled beef loaded chips. Cooked slowly, but enjoyed quickly.
That's a big ultimate from Biopanther. Good stopwatch will be used, however, no flash from Juves. Oranges will mean he's not K. Over the wall goes Shern. And now Juves is in trouble. Shockwave will land. That is 2 kills. The fight might have been turned around. That's a Gangplank ultimate. However, Biopanther is going to look for the 2v1. Big damage coming out. Will pick up Chippies. Will get shut down. And they use an ultimate as well. Mash will shut him down. Over the back goes Biopanther. Only gets 1 member with the ult. And that will be the Execute. King over the wall. So much damage. However, will now be stunned up underneath the turret. It's a 2 for 2. And Direwolves do have to turn around. Looks like they want to go. That's going to be Paranoia. They go on to Juves. He does not have any tank ability. And King and Cupcake just absolutely wash the back end of the team fight. They're backing away from it, but Shern is about to die. And Juves is in the pit. 1,000 health left. Will get it within smite range and will pick it up. Mammoth skill Baron.
And what is going on the backside? Ezreal falls down incredibly low.
Reset for Cupcake, and his Mash and Chippies available. And boys, you have to fight. You can't retreat. The Nexus is now under fire. Cupcake looking for it. Chippy's still there. Hook is on. Flashes forward. Will shut down the Orianna. But Shern has just focused out the Nexus and won game 1 for the Direwolves.